We've waited and we've waited and we've waited some more. But now nearly 2 years after BMW first showed these bikes out to the world, they've launched the G310R and the G310GS in India. Now by now it's common knowledge that both these motorcycles are produced in partnership with TVS at the plant in Hosur. But there's still the very valid question, how do these made in India motorcycles actually fare on Indian roads? And today, that's what we're about to find out.
BMW gave us limited time to ride both these bikes today, but we spent plenty of time with them at the launch a couple of days ago, and they do make a great first impression. Both the G310R and the G310GS take liberal inspirations from their bigger siblings, and that's a wonderful thing. In the case of the G310R, the philosophy comes from the mighty S1000R liter class street naked, and this motorcycle packs similar clean and muscular lines, but of course in a smaller package. The 310R uses a rather simple looking triangular halogen headlamp, but the body colored shrouding on both sides adds class and aggression. A chunky fuel tank and large plastic flanks make for a pleasing design, and there's some jewelry on display as well in the form of a BMW badge on either side. The lower part of the engine is on display too, with proud BMW stamping clear for the eye to see. A small belly pan under the engine rounds off what is a clean and neatly executed design. Over at the rear, you will find a point of interest in the fender-mounted brake lamp and efficiently integrated rear grab rails. If you're wondering why some bits look familiar, that would be because the TVS Apache RR310 runs the same wheel design, gold forks, and has a very similar looking exhaust as well. As for the G310GS, the first thing that strikes you is how much bigger it looks than the R. Every dimension is bigger on this bike, and an ADV style beak works with a different outer shell on the fuel tank to give it a rather authentic adventure style look. The windscreen may seem small for an adventure bike, but I'm no fan of these oversized windscreens on adventure bikes, and the smaller unit of the GS does well to provide some amount of wind protection, but it also lets plenty of refreshing air through to the rider. Beneath the skin though, the GS features the same 11-litre fuel tank as the R, and that's a bit of a letdown for an adventure motorcycle. Continuing further down to the side, the GS uses a similar single-piece seat, but it sits much higher than the friendly 785mm seat height on the R. In fact, this will play quite a big role in the G310 buying process, because the seat on the R is very friendly and lower than most of its rivals. But the GS's 835mm seat height will be intimidating to shorter riders. If you must have a GS but you'd like a lower seat height, the company will sell you an accessory unit that lowers it by 15mm. Further to the back, a large and sturdy cast aluminium luggage rack adds to the rugged look, but has a coated payload of just under 10 kilos. Fit and finish levels are pleasingly high on both bikes, and the GS gets a small addition to the switchgear which allows you to deactivate the ABS. Both bikes also use a similar digital display that has plenty of information to offer, but the screen is quite small and you have to scroll through it to see all the relevant data.
It's plainly obvious that these are two handsome and really well-built machines, but if your priority is to be noticed in your shiny new BMW motorcycle, the GS is definitely going to attract more attention.
The designs are fresh on top, but the BMWs are actually quite familiar under the skin. That's because the TVS Apache RR310 has already given us a wonderful first taste of this new trellis frame and 313cc reverse inclined motor. Performance figures are the same 34 horsepower and 28 Nm of torque, and the 6-speed gearbox is similarly precise. As with the RR310, the BMWs don't get a slipper clutch, a feature that's now becoming quite mainstream with a number of more affordable motorcycles offering it. In terms of performance, it's a very familiar affair with a tractable motor that pulls eagerly above 6000 RPM. Refinement was one area of concern after the RR310, and there is noticeable improvement in this regard. The handlebars on both the BMWs are rubber mounted, and while vibrations aren't completely absent, they are well controlled. Vibrations in the seat are almost non-existent, but both the R and the GS generate a buzz in the foot pegs above 6000 RPM. While the refinement levels on the BMW seem good enough to get along with comfortably, it has to be said that this engine is not as smooth as the one on the KTM 390 Duke. And with that, we come to the chassis. Interestingly enough, this isn't simply a case of two siblings dressed up in different outfits, and there are some substantial changes going on under the skin. Now both bikes do use the same frame and swing arm, but the GS gets a larger 19-inch front rim versus the 17-inch wheel on the R. The GS also runs more premium and adventure-appropriate Metzeler Torrens tires against the Michelin Pilot Streets on the naked bike. But the biggest change of all is in the suspension travel, and the GS offers an impressive 180 mm of suspension travel at both ends, which is a good deal more than the R. In case you are wondering why the GS has such a tall seat height, well, there's your answer. And as you'd expect, all of this results in a rather profound effect on the riding experience.
The G310R is a sweet-natured and likable street motorcycle. It's sporty enough, but it's also comfortable, and that engine is calm, unhurried, and fast when you want it. If that sounds familiar, it's because this brand of performance is very similar to what the Apache RR310 offers, and the big difference really is on the TVS, you're sitting like this, and the BMW, it's more comfortable and upright. The G310 GS is a remarkably different feeling motorcycle, and the changes start right from the way you sit on it, with a very neutral riding position, a wider bar, and very substantial bodywork underneath you. You're also sitting higher up, and that long travel suspension is plush. I mean, you can just move it around like that, and that means excellent ride quality. This thing eats all the potholes that comes its way. You can sustain long distances without any concern. However, we simply haven't spent enough time with the bike to see how it handles. But I can tell you right now, this is not going to be a sharp and sporty handler, and it's all about long distance, easy and relaxed motorcycling. And considering it's an adventure bike, I think that's hit the nail on the head perfectly.
Both the small capacity BMWs are really likable motorcycles. I enjoyed riding the R much more than I anticipated, and the GS impresses strongly with its touring abilities. But there are a couple of problems. First, the dealer network is still tiny and there's only 7 outlets around the country, but there are more set to arrive soon. However, as you've probably guessed, the bigger issue comes in the price. Yes, the 3-year unlimited kilometer warranty is a great move, but it doesn't take away from the fact that these are expensive motorcycles. At Rs 2.99 lakh ex showroom, the G310R is a whole 76,000 rupees more expensive than the TVS Apache RR310, a bike which shares the entire rolling chassis, electricals, and even has the same engine spec. The TVS actually takes it 2 steps further with a full fairing and a set of expensive LED headlamps. More relevant though, the KTM 390 Duke costs nearly 60,000 rupees less, but offers about 30% more power, as well as a richer feature set that includes the likes of a powerful LED headlamp, a slipper clutch, and a TFT color display. And let's not forget, KTM is a premium European brand too, and the G310R is priced on par with the 390 Duke in most European countries, or even lower in some markets. To sum up, the G310R is a thoroughly likable machine and will certainly appeal to those who want a quick and premium motorcycle that's calmer than the angry KTM. But while it is the most affordable way to get yourself a BMW motorcycle, it's not at all what you'd call affordable.
The GS is more expensive by a fair margin, but it makes a stronger argument. It has no immediate rivals in the country at the moment because the Royal Enfield Himalayan just doesn't have the power, and the Versys X300, well, that's actually really close to this bike in specification, but it's priced way too expensive. And as for that KTM 390 Adventure, it's not going to be here for at least another year. Now that actually places this bike in a sweet spot in our market because there's nothing else at this price point that can offer you this kind of capability, and I'm sure that the GS is going to be the more popular of the twins.